Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the ranking member for having this hearing. And Mr. Muhlenberg, you know, I first want to say to all the people that stood up that I'm very moved by you being here, and your losses are very, very, I think, heartfelt across the committee here. And, you know, the thing that really bothers me is knowing that it's preventable. It makes it even more outrageous that we haven't made the kind of dramatic changes that I want to talk to the CEO here about. Mr. Muhlenberg, you showed some emotion when these folks stood up and everything. What should come from that emotion is some action to do something to really make a difference. And for this committee to coalesce around the solution that's really going to move us forward would require you to step forward and specifically say what you support. And I haven't seen you do that in all the questioning. You've been asked over and over again, what would you support? I mean, it's absolutely clear that it's too cozy a relationship with the FAA and your airline. And so what is it you're going to commit to specifically in terms of reform? That's why you're up here. And that's what we want to see you do, is to weigh in with us. This is what would make a difference. This is what would make it safer. This is what would make sure that we don't lose passengers like this in the future, or the crew.
Senator, while I respectfully don't agree with the characterization of coziness with the FAA, we respect the independent oversight of the FAA, and that's very important to us from a safety principle standpoint. We have taken a number of internal actions that we think are meaningful as they relate to our own internal reforms on safety. We are engaged in the legislative process. And Senator, I appreciate your invitation for us to be involved in that. I know there are many stakeholders. As you heard from me earlier, we are committed to strong oversight in the aerospace industry. It's part of what makes this system safe. We have a shared objective, and if there are things we can do to make it better, we will. I don't know, John, if you have any specific ideas there.
Yeah, Senator, you know, I would say that, you know, one of the big issues was we used an industry standard assumption on pilots and how they would react, and that proved incorrect in these two accidents. So in terms of things that I think we need to change with the FAA is we need to go revisit some of these regulatory guidances and make sure that they're up to date. I would even tell you that there's probably some regulations that we advocated as part of the FAA reauthorization bill, 10 regulations that FAA should work with industry to update based on technology that's out there today.
Well,
but in terms of coziness, I used to be the lead administrator for the ODA, and I can tell you that we have a respectful relationship with the FAA, but we do have our differences of opinion sometimes. But we discuss those, we work it out on how we're going to comply, and it's not a cozy relationship. It's a professional relationship.
Well, it's a relationship that didn't work for the consumers in this and for your employees that went down in those flights. You and others in your company blamed the deceased pilots and the culture of the countries where the crashes occurred for the accidents. But from what we've seen in the last year since the first crash, it appears that Boeing's own culture is more blameworthy for installing a faulty system that resulted in too many deaths and could have caused more. This culture starts at the top, and that's why I've been asking you for the specifics of what you support. And I hope after this hearing you will come forward and when there's legislation out there, say this is going to make it better, and come up here and spend some time to build the consensus to get this done, because I think the large, powerful interests that are a part of this don't want any reform. They want you to tinker around like you're talking about, but they don't want to see any reform. If Boeing could not guarantee that pilots were prepared to fly these jets, your company should not have sold them. Did anyone at Boeing question, hesitate, or raise any issues prior to selling the 737 MAX 8 with this software to Lion Air or Ethiopian Air?
Senator, first, we look forward to responding to your requests there and providing inputs on the reforms. To your question, we do rely on the airlines and the regulatory authorities around the world as part of this integrated system to make sure we're fielding airplanes and crews that can fly safely. I do think it's important for me to clarify a point that you made earlier. We have not blamed the pilots, and I know that's been reported, but that is not our company position, and it never will be. We are responsible for our airplanes. We are responsible, and we own that, regardless of cause. Any accident with one of our airplanes is unacceptable.
Well, that
unacceptable.
change is welcome, but that about the culture went out from your company early on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.